In the last episode, we were able to list the different online users on our UI. And in this episode, I want us to create a function which when we click a user profile, we will be able to initiate a call to the other user, and the other user will be able to see a notification of an incoming call. We'll still work with Socket.io only because we'll just emit an event to the server, then the server will emit a call, a notification event to the person who we are calling, and they'll be able to see that notification on their UI. What we'll do, we'll go to our socket context and we will start right here by setting a state. The state will be called ongoing call. So right here I'll say const ongoing call, and we will set ongoing call, and then right here I'll say use state, and we'll define the type for that particular ongoing call, and by default these will be null. So the state right here can be null, but we'll also define a type. We had created a types folder, and I'll go to index.js, and right here I'll add that type. I will export type ongoing call. This will be equal to this object. We'll have the participants. The participants will be of type participants. We don't have this type, so let's define it. I'll copy this one, and then I'll export type participants will be equal to, we will have two things, the caller, the person who is initiating the call initially. So these will be of type socket user, the socket user we have here. Then we'll also have the receiver. So these will be also socket user. Now right here, I'll go ahead and say is ringing. So for an ongoing call, we'll have this particular property to see whether someone is currently calling us or not, okay? And I'll save. Then I'll just come right here and we'll add the type right here. We'll say ongoing call or null. We should import this ongoing call from our types. So control space, if you click at the end here and you hit control space, then it will give you a suggestion of the import, and you import that from the types. The next thing is to create a function. So maybe before our use effects, I'll keep those functions at the top here, and here maybe I can just remove this console log, and I'll say const handle call will be equal to, I'll make use of the use callback hook to optimize this function so that it doesn't run on every re-render, and therefore we return an arrow function in here, and this will have some dependency array. So handle, to spell it correctly. Now let's pass socket here, then current socket user. So this is the currently logged in user. I'll call the person current socket user, and now here I'll say ongoing call. We don't have these right now, but we should get that particular person from our online users. We are not using this user directory. We will use this user from online users because these online users have extra properties like the socket ID, which will be important for emitting the events and so on. Const current socket user will be equal to online users dot find, and right here we'll get an online user at a time, and then I'll be able to return online user dot user ID is equal to user dot ID. User ID here, this is like that, and then here I'll say const participants will be equal to the caller, and the caller in this case is the current socket user. So current socket user, and we'll have the receiver, and the receiver in this case is the person whom we are calling. We will set this to be user, and this user will get that through our function here. When we call this function, we'll pass the user along with that. So here I'll say user and I'll say full colon. The user is of type socket user. So we get the participants like that. Then down here, I'll just go ahead and I'll set an ongoing call, set ongoing call, and we invoke that. We pass the different stuff for ongoing call, that is the participants, comma, and is ringing property. In this case, is ringing will be false. We are the person who are initiating the call, therefore we set is ringing to false. The participants, I think the spelling here is wrong, so I replace that. We still have an issue. I think the types should be the one that is having a problem. Yeah, the spelling here. So participants, come back. Okay, I should make sure that I have these current socket user. So right here, I'll say if we don't have current socket user, we will go ahead and return immediately. Okay, and that is now fine. We get the participants like this, and we set our ongoing call like this. Then right here, we will emit now an event. We'll say socket dot emit, and right here we will emit the call event, and right here I'll say participants like that. Sometimes socket might be null as well. So I think here you can say if current socket user is not available, or if we don't have a socket, we return. Then here we can just say socket.emit without that question mark. I hope that makes sense. So this is our function for emitting the call event. This function, we will call it whenever we click the user profile on our list of online users. Therefore, in components, then list online users. So here is where we'll have the on-click event, but we need to get that from our use socket. So let's come back here. We will add a type at iSocket context handle call, full colon. Then we'll have a user, and the user here will be of socket user. So this function will get the user. It will return void. So return void. Then down here now, we can be able to add that at our value. So comma, and I'll say handle call. I save, I go to the list of online users, and we'll now be able to get that function from our use socket hook. So I can say handle call, and we get the function. We come right here at our div. Maybe after the key, I can say on click an arrow function in here, which will return the handle call, and we invoke that one, and we pass the online user, this particular online user. Once we do that, we'll get this online user in our handle call. So back to this function, we get that user as user, and then those will be the receiver, and our current logged in user is the one that will be the caller. We can now resend to this particular event on our server. So I minimize everything and I go to the server.js. Maybe after the disconnect, I can come down there and I'll say call events, and we'll have different events here about the call. So here I'll say socket.on, and we will resend to the call event, and then right here on call, we run this particular function. So right here, I'll add a new folder and I'll say socket events. In socket events, I'll add a new file and I'll say oncall.js. If you come to server.js, you'll notice that right here, we had this const io new server, and this is the one that we are using to emit the different events, io emit. So I will export this io so that we can use it in other functions outside this file. So here I'll just say io is equals to that. Then outside our prepare here is where I'll define the io, and I'll say export let io. So we export io like that. But right here is where we assign it a value, so it will just update this. On our on call, we'll be able to bring in that io, import id structure io, and right here these will come from server.js. We'll say const on call an async function which will receive the participants like that, and then we'll set this to be an arrow function, and we can do stuff in here. And then down here I can export default on call. If I go to server.js, so we need to import it from our socket events. So on call is coming from our socket events on call. Now, one thing with working on our server and with JavaScript, we have to specify right here that this is .js. Otherwise, it will not work. When we listen to this particular event, we will get to call this on call the participants to it automatically to it. On our on call, we get those participants and we can do something with them. Now here we'll just perform a check. If we have our participants dot receiver dot socket ID, then we'll go ahead and emit another event, and I'll say io.to. We will specify the socket ID of the person that we are emitting to, and that is the receiver socket ID. So here I'll just copy that and we emit to the receiver socket ID, and then right here I'll say dot emit, and here we include whatever we are emitting. Here I'll say that the event will be incoming call. This is the event that we will listen to on the client, and we will pass the participants together with it. So participants. Now on our socket context, we will need to listen to the incoming call event. I'll go to our socket context, and then I'll go to the very bottom after this particular use effect, I think so. Yeah, after this is the last one here. So I'll just add another use effect, and this use effect will listen to the calls events. Okay, so here we'll say use effect, and we'll have a dependency array. Here we'll have socket, is socket connected, and then we'll have the user on. Okay, and then now in here is where we will listen to the event. First of all, let's perform a check. If we don't have a socket, or if socket is not connected, then we will just return. If that passes, we'll go ahead and add the socket dot on, and we will listen to the incoming call event. And then right here we will run a function, and we can call it on incoming call. This function is not defined, so we will define it at the top, but we should also include this at our dependency array here. So here also include on incoming call. If that changes, we can run this use effect again. Now let's work on this particular function. I'll define the function just above our use effects, maybe after handle call. Const on incoming call will be equal to use callback. Then we invoke that. We will get the participants of type participants from our types. So I use these, and these will have dependency array. The dependency array will be the socket, the user, and the ongoing call. In here we will be able to set ongoing call the participants, and then right here we'll set now is ringing to true, like we are receiving this call right here. Okay, very nice. Later on we'll come back to this on incoming call, and the idea is if we are already in a call, we will automatically hang up another user who is trying to call us because we have an ongoing call. And now we can be able to show a call notification on the UI by making use of this particular flag. I want to come back to this use effect. Let me save to auto format, and we will clean up listening of this event. I will return a function. I'll use these curly brackets, and I'll say socket.off, and then right here I'll say on incoming call. So I go ahead and save, and now what I'll do, I'll go to our components, I'll add a new file, and I will say call notification dot tsx stateless functional component call notification, and then right here we will be able to return a div const with the structure ongoing call, and we'll get these from our use socket, and we invoke that one. Okay, we didn't export these ongoing call, therefore we get an error. We'll need to go back to our socket context, and from our socket context go at the very top and add a type here. You will say ongoing call full colon, and this will be of type ongoing call, or it can be null. We now add this to our value right here, so I'll just say ongoing call and then a comma. Now our call notification will be able to get this without an error. We'll make use of the property is ringing from our ongoing call to know whether a person is ringing or not. And right here what I'll do, I'll just say if we don't have ongoing call dot is ringing, then we will just return, we will not show the notification, else we will return this div. And what I'll do, I'll display this as absolute, so I'll say class name and I'll say absolute here, and this will be absolute to the body of our application. The body is at our layout, then we had body here. Here we had a class name of inter. Initially when we were starting this course, we installed shardcn. Shardcn came together with a function called cn function at our lib. We'll make use of this cn function to merge our tailwind classes. Back to app, then layout. At our body, I'll say cn and then I'll invoke that. Okay, cn, I'll invoke that, and then I wrap like that. We import this cn from our lib. So from lib utils, use a comma here, and then I'll say relative, and that will merge those two classes. And then now in our call notification, this will be absolute to our body since we included relative at our body. We continue now with the styling of our call notification UI right here. bg will be set hyphen 500, let width be screen. So this will be the parent div for our call notification, and we want the background to be transparent. So we include this bg, but we'll also have an opacity. So we'll say bg hyphen opacity to be 70. So it will be transparent. Then with screen and h screen, it will occupy the entire screen. 0 and bottom 0. We will flex, and we will have items to be at the center, and we will justify center. Up to this point, we are not sure if our call notification will work or not, but to test this, let's just say here someone is calling. Just that, we'll go to our app, then page, and here is where we will hook up our call notification. So here I'll say call notification. Did we export it? Why are we not getting a suggestion? We should get a suggestion for this. It will come from our components call notification. Very nice. Then at call notification, we should say that this particular component is a client component since we made use of this hook. So at the top here, we'll say use client, and I go ahead and save. So at this point, we can test the app and see if we get this someone is calling. I have two browsers already open. I have two users, this one and this one. Okay, they are both reloading. I'll wait for them to complete. There we go. Now when we click this, we should emit a call event to the server. The server will emit an incoming call to the person that we have tried to call, which is this person. So I click and nothing happens. So that means that we have an issue. So let's inspect first and see if we have any errors here. No errors. So I have found out the issue. It's pretty small. Here we said socket ID with a small I instead of a capital here. So socket ID like that. Now this is one of the good thing of using TypeScript. Since here we are using JavaScript, it does not warn us that there is nothing like socket ID with a small I, but if you are using TypeScript, it would have told us. But we fixed that, and let's test the UI again. I call, and now look, we have this dark screen right here, and it's saying here someone is calling. And right here we said top 0, and instead of bottom 0 we should have said left 0, so that that dark UI will touch the end here. So let's see, have I saved? I'm not sure if I've saved the file, but I want it to be at the very end here. And another thing, it should be transparent. I don't think it's transparent right now, so something is still up. Opacity, okay, opacity there 70, so I had misspelled. I save again, and now let's check. So I refresh, and I refresh here, and now when I call, it's transparent, and we have this someone is calling. So here we'll design this UI in the next episode, since this episode is already long enough. So I'll see you in the next one.